Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 17 of the Patio Slave podcast. It's Anthony here. I'm here with Tony and Nate. And today we have a special interview guest, which Nate will introduce in just a moment. Before we get into that, we want to give a shout out as well as promote our outreach here. So if you're on Instagram or Twitter, hit us up at Patio Slave. And if you're still a fan of the email, which hopefully is not a dying breed, patioslavepodcast@gmail.com. No snail mail here, so keep it to email. For shout-outs this week, I want to give a shout-out to actually another podcast, which is doing something. If you've listened to us, you know we love nerdery. These guys are doing kind of double the nerdery. It's podcast is called Horror Flicks and Guitar Picks Podcast. They basically have band members from what I looked at, heavier bands, Incendiary, who we discussed last week, Immure, Cruel Hand, a few others, and they have band members come on and talk about their favorite horror movies. So it's double nerdery. Shout out to those guys. Thanks for checking us out. They're available online. Go check them out. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Nate to introduce our guest.
Yeah, thanks, man. So today we had one of my really, really good friends. I consider him one of my best friends, Rob Riccitelli. He was a radio DJ for a long time, and how we kind of all got into alternative radio with WCYY. So really awesome for him to come on and chat with us and hang out. And you'll hear on the interview, like, there's so much stuff we didn't cover. There's a lot of stuff we did cover, kind of the blueprint of how the industry works and his memories and so forth. But you'll hear him kind of talk about some stuff that we're leaving on the table for some future episodes because we had some wild times from the perks of the industry, let's say. Let's leave it at that.
Absolutely.
And one thing I will say is if you're from where we grew up, which is Portland, Maine area, you know Rob. He's a radio legend. If you're not from the Northeast, he is just that. In my eyes, he's a radio legend. He, came up kind of when we did growing up, getting into music, and we all listened to him growing up and then got to know him and whatnot.
Yeah, either at shows or calling in to request our songs, which you talk about a little bit. Yeah, for sure. So this was a fun one. Without further ado, here's Rob Riccitelli.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm here with my friend Rob. We've seen more shows than anyone else I can think of, and I think we might have even coined the term nerdery.
I do remember nerdery becoming a thing back in, it's been over a decade now.
Yeah.
And it's so fitting. And you mentioned, thanks for having me on, by the way, guys. This is awesome. We've been talking
about
this
man.
for a while.
Yeah.
I'm on the pod. This is good.
Finally, yeah.
This is good. And that made me think, you talk about all these concerts. Do you remember, I remember the first time that we hung out, like outside, we bump into each other at concerts a lot, me working at the radio station. But do you remember the first time we hung out outside of a concert?
I have a guess.
No, but I was going to say that I know the concert where we first had a full-on conversation. We were just shooting the shit was the Linkin Park Meteora kind of
in
album
Worcester,
release.
Wasn't it?
Yes.
It wasn't. Yeah.
I was at that.
Yep.
That was 03.
Yeah.
All right. So we probably knew each other back in 03, but the first time we hung out from my recollection is we got together after the Crystal Method show.
Yep.
At the State Theater, and you invited me to the Treehouse.
Yes.
Grant
And
Street
we hung out
days,
at
right?
the Treehouse.
No, Treehouse is South Portland.
Oh, Treehouse, South Portland. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's not a venue. Don't worry. No, it was actually where he lived when he was
How could
still
I
living with his
forget?
parents.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it was like
Yeah,
a
and
little separate,
we
studio.
were smoking a bunch of pot, and your mom came in for a second, and she pretended she didn't know what was going on, but it was super awkward. You remember this?
Yes.
So that's kind of how our friendship kind of started blooming from there, I guess.
Yeah, hanging out, talking about music.
Yeah.
Smoking weed.
Yep.
No. Is that why you're in the industry now, Nate? That makes sense.
Yeah, everything comes full circle.
Yep.
Sure does.
And the treehouse was what? The converted garage? It was.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a garage that we had renovated and made into a kind of like a grandma suite kind of thing. Actually, we used it for my grandmother. And then I moved in after high school for like a year and just kind of stayed there for a little bit until I moved into my own place in Portland.
See, after high school for me, I moved my room down to the basement, which was a little bit better because I could do what we were just talking about, and it would be a little bit more incognito. But you had the setup, dude.
It was
your place wasn't even attached to your parents' place. Like they had to leave their house to go into your room, and you had a bathroom, and it was like a studio apartment. It was amazing.
It was cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
The treehouse was pretty badass. I don't know how I forgot that. So yeah, we're excited to have you on, Rob. You've been in music adjacent, working in the radio industry for how long now?
Do I have to answer that question?
Give us a ballpark.
35 years.
Just because I'm a date guy, let's see, the beginning of August would be 27 years.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Not to make it sound like I'm an old geezer. I mean, I kind of am, but to be fair, I actually did get into radio somehow when I was 16. That's kind of how it all started. Back in the summer of '93, I was playing the Proclaimers and UB40 and Soul Asylum on the radio.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's the golden years, man. Early 90s. Woo.
Early 90s. Yeah.
Awesome.
You got what station was that? Where were you located?
It was 103.7 Peak FM. It was a top 40 station, and it was in Berlin, New Hampshire, which is about a 45-minute drive from where I lived. And I just got my license, and I did it for like 6 or 7 months, and actually drove through the crazy, like, I don't know if you ever driven through, it's not Crawford. I forget what I forget the notch there, but you go from through almost into Berlin, New Hampshire, and you drive there through the wintertime. It's scary. Mm-hmm. And here's my mom who's having a heart attack letting me do this because she knew what I wanted to do. And I did it a few times on the weekends or whatever. And then crazy enough, the station actually ended up moving to North Conway, my hometown. Like 8 months later. So I just kind of continued doing that part-time for the rest of high school. It was perfect. I could walk to work. It was awesome. But yeah, it all started, my whole career started in top 40 back in 93, believe it or not.
So is there like a interview or application for that? How does that even happen?
So, you know what it is? It's being persistent / annoying. And we've all heard that, if you want something, get after it. Nate, you could put it in you've done this before as far as getting back to meet people. You're persistent and annoying to the point where they'll or you'll just sneak under gates, whatever. It doesn't happen. Whatever you're gonna do it. I knew I wanted to be in radio since I was super young.
Yep.
It all started with MTV. At first I wanted to be a VJ, but then I was like, that's not gonna happen. But I knew I wanted to be on the radio since I was like 10 years old, and I became friends with the music director, assistant program director at the time. He was DJing a Chem Free Place club down in North Conway at the time when the station was still about 45 minutes away. And I would go hang out with him, and I would call him on the request line. And basically, he realized that I was a nerd. And he's like, well, we're at least to get you in here part-time. So I got in part-time, and I was basically running the board. Running the board in radio business means you're pressing buttons and you're not talking. I was running a countdown show, just pressing buttons. Because it's back in the radio days where every element that came on the radio, you had to manually press. There was no computer system. There was none of that. Everything that you heard was pressed by a human being. So somebody had to be in the studio at all times. And I went on the radio one day without permission, and I did a liner card and I recorded it. And I was like, I'm either going to get on the air or I'm going to get fired. And I showed it to my friend who's the assistant program director. He's like, well, do you want me to show this to Jack? Jack was my boss at the time. I'm like, I don't know. Do I? And he's like, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Jack calls me and asks me if I go in and talk to him. So I'm like, I'm either getting an air shift or I'm getting fired.
Yeah.
One or the other. He's like, oh, you sound pretty good. You want a weekend shift? He was a real deep voice kind of radio guy, whatever. So that was kind of how it all started. I got my own radio shift on the air when I was, like I said, it was like August of '93, kind of crazy. And I had no right being on the radio, by the way. I have some of these tapes. They're awful.
That's how we all start, right?
Absolutely. So I gotta thank Rob and Jack for letting me get on the radio when I shouldn't. And that's kind of how it all started.
Nice. I mean, go back and listen to episode 1 of our pod. You'll be like, how do these guys even start this thing? So, yeah.
Are they in a well? Where are they recording?
Yeah. It just keeps getting easier. It gets more natural after a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that's awesome.
So what was you ended up moving down to Portland, Maine, and you were in Portland on the radio here for at the alternative station for what, 16 years, 15 years?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to move to a bigger city. I wanted to get into radio. I wanted to experience more. The station I was working at the time had ended up flipping formats, and I wasn't, I wanted to be on the radio, and I loved CYY. And I listened to CYY in my hometown of North Conway. Didn't come in as great, but I listened to it, and I thought it was such a great station. I thought it'd be so much fun to be on. And a distant relative of mine, complete coincidence, was the music director for CYY, and he and it's funny. I love him. I love you, Goo. But even then, I still had to like get in touch with him. Like I'd have to call and send tapes or whatever. And I finally got a call back, and I'm like, what the fuck here? I'm family, Jesus. but he did. He finally called me back, and I went in and met with them, and they gave me the Sunday night air shift from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Got to get in somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I told him I wanted more hours. I told him I wanted to go to move to Portland. And oddly enough, the night guy had given his notice because he was going to go teach out west. But the great part about it is he gave like a month and a half notice.
Wow.
Which was amazing for me because I just graduated from high school and I get offered the night show. But I was like, I have like over a month before I have to go there and
that's awesome.
relocate my life and do this whole thing. So yeah, it just worked out. And I did the night show for I want to say till 03, so like 3 years or so, maybe 4. And then I ended up getting into the afternoon slot, doing the top 5 at 5. And
Staple for us.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. The top 5 at 5 is definitely a fun thing. And it's just I'm thinking back to that now, and it's one of the many things that how radio has changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. As far as the interactiveness, like people would get excited
to
call in and make sure their favorite song was on the top 5 at 5.
Yeah. Well, that was like a heyday. It was like the localized like TRL, So we were like,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. A good way to put it. Absolutely. It's exactly what it was.
Yeah. So for like any nerd, like any like localized TRL, like we're already like stoked on these bands anyway. And so to have a platform locally was like super cool. Yeah. It really brought it home. And it was, like you said, very personable. So that was cool.
Well, that was probably the first time I ever talked to you, Rob, was calling in to request a song for the top 5.
And I've heard that from people too. Like people that I've actually end up becoming good friends with. They're like, I actually called you on, and my friend Kevin, he's like, first time I ever talked to you, I request Smash Mouth on Throwback Lunch and you put me on the radio.
Nice.
Yes.
Now it's like one of my close friends. It's funny.
Yeah.
Well, and that was pre-internet, right? So that was, so you had to call
we had
in.
the internet, but we weren't. Yeah, you weren't.
We had the internet, but we weren't
using.
using it in the like we are today. That's for sure.
So how many people were fielding calls? Just one person?
So if we weren't in the studio or whatever, we had a voicemail set up, obviously. So myself and my former coworker, the Face Melter, we would do most of the voicemail, cleansing, so to speak. So, oh my God, that right there in itself, I wish I had saved some of those voicemails. Holy crap! If you get to clear the voicemail from the weekend, you had some entertainment. People were hammered. They were pissed. They were happy. They wanted to hear their favorite song. I heard some of the craziest shit on that voicemail. People could, they would call up and we would answer the phone or they would leave their favorite song. And then eventually, of course, we got more involved digitally so they could go online and vote there as well.
That's hilarious. That's like the analog touch tunes. You know what I mean? You're getting all these drunk people like, I want to hear Smash Mouth.
Yep, absolutely.
I think one of the first nights I hung out with you, Rob, was with Nate and another friend of ours, Nate. We had coming back from the bars downtown Portland, which was a pretty fun scene, especially in the summer. And you played us one of those voicemails about the Franz Ferdinand song, if I remember.
Oh
correctly.
my God, that guy!
What
was his name?
It wasn't
Tommy.
A voicemail; it was a caller because you talked to him.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Him. We
We'll
had a
leave it
name
anonymous.
for him too. He was something.
Yeah. That was quite it was a very colorful phone call, if I remember correctly. And I'm like, man, this guy's a nerd like me.
I think I still have that somewhere too.
Yeah.
I save a lot of shit. I'm not only am I a nerd, but I'm a nostalgic nerd.
Yeah.
I like to keep stuff. I have, I mean, you guys have been over to my place before. I have a rubber roach that says Papa Roach on it. Like I have these little, like, you know, I have a Vines notepad. I have a Fits in the Tantrums bracelet. I have, you know, all these like crazy things that were just like handed down promotionally over the years. I like would hold on to these things, and I still have.
Do you have a pair of Clutch gym shorts?
I did have a pair of Clutch gym shorts, but I had an accident
Me too.
and I had to throw them out.
That happens.
That kind of goes into what we were thinking about too, like trade spend in the radio industry in the 90s, especially in the early 2000s. It seemed like it was a friggin' free for all between like merchandise and dining out and just contests, free tickets. Like,
yeah, it's definitely changed a lot. And you know, and I still love radio. I still love listening to terrestrial radio, but it's changed so much. And it's, you know, people ask me all the time why I left, you know, my job at the radio station. And there's a lot of reasons, but, you know, the age of where we are and what has happened. And that has a lot to do with why I left. And it wasn't because, it was because, I mean, plain and simple, corporate is a bitch to deal with.
Yeah.
They were super chill for many. I mean, most of the years of radio up until probably like 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. But they were, you know, CEOs of radio companies and whatever were sitting back and just letting everybody do their thing because radio was all anybody had before Napster and stuff. And even then, people were still listening to the radio. But, you know, when more things became available, more, you know, platforms of music to listen to and stuff like that, you know, they have to change things. And I understand that, you know, you got to come up with new ways, new innovative ways to keep people listening to the radio. And that happened and I stuck through it as long as I could. And I got to the point where, and I always told myself, I said, if this job ever stops being fun, I'm not going to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I never at the time would think that that's even possible. But this is also like, you know, years ago, years before any of us knew what was going to happen. And, you know, the pay was never great. Anybody that's in radio, if you're, especially if you're in a smaller market, the pay was never great, but that was okay with me. I had some, you know, I DJ'd weddings on the side and stuff like that. So I loved what I did. And I really enjoyed it. I had a passion for it. Of course, you know, free concert tickets and dinners here and there or whatever. That was just a bonus. That's not why I did it though.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where, you know, here's these companies coming in and being like, well, we need to do something. We need to do this, we need to do that. And we need to be hard asses about it. And there needs to be consequences if you're not performing and, you know, giving us the numbers that we're looking for digitally. And I got to the point in my job where I was like, all right, well, I make shit for money, which has never really been an issue for me because I enjoy what I'm doing, but now I'm stressed.
Yeah.
And I dealt with it for a while and, you know, and I was just like, you know what, I just don't think I'm not being true to myself anymore by continuing to do this. So that being said, I left my position. And to be fair, and I think a lot of people, and I know a lot of people, they think everything happens internally, and that's not the case. So, you know, if you have a favorite radio station, if you're listening right now and you have a favorite radio station and they're doing something that you don't like, or they're all of a sudden playing different kinds of music, there's a good chance that's not coming from within that building. There's a good chance it's coming externally from the higher ups, which don't even get me started on that. That's another thing that drove me crazy over the years is that, you know, they have these, you know, these people that they hire, these consultants that they believe have the, you know, the ability to run markets musically that they've never even been to before.
Right.
And that's been a huge thing for me that always drove me crazy is like, well, you're playing the wrong music. Well, no, we're not playing the wrong music because I know Tool does not have a top 20 song in the alternative format right now, but if they came to Portland right now, they'd sell out 70,000 seats in a day.
Yep.
Or that might be a little bit of a
but no, I know what you're saying.
But like
you know that you had your finger on the pulse of the city.
Yeah, Portland has always been a rock town.
Yep.
You know, we have our alternative market as well, but and that's the great thing about CYY is we always played everything. Before I started working there, we had a little off the radio thing that we would say from Jewel to Tool.
Nice.
That's awesome.
We weren't playing any Jewel when I got there,
No,
but we did. Like
Yeah.
we did play Jewel back in the 90s. And that's the one thing, that's the other thing I loved about CYY is we played everything.
Yeah.
Like Slipknot Duality was in heavy rotation. I think we were playing Jack Johnson in heavy rotation right around then too. That's what I tell people. I'm like, we played Slipknot and Jack Johnson at the same time.
And this is why we love everything. This is
Exactly.
that radio station. We grew up with it. Like it came on the air when I was 10 years old, and I'm going to be 36 in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, that is, I remember listening to everything. And it's like, oh, here's a hip hop type song. You know, you played Atmosphere at one point, you played Eminem at one point. Like you'd play that stuff too.
We played it all.
Yeah.
We played everything. And that's what I loved about that station. And then, you know, years went by and things kind of changed musically. And, you know, I'll be honest, I tell the story often, like Mumford and Sons came out and Little Lion Man was their debut song. And it was like cruising up the charts. And I was like, there's no way this is going to become a hit at Alternative. I was like, there's no fucking way. This is a folk, like banjo. This is not going to happen. I was so wrong. and that's fine. And I've been wrong before. But that was the beginning of the big flip with the music. This is when, you know, the Seether and the Breaking Benjamin and the 3 Days Grace and the Tool and all that stuff started taking a back seat to the real, like, kind of hipster kind of alternative stuff, which we always embraced. But I was never one to go by the charts. I wanted to, I mean, yes, let's sprinkle some of that stuff in, but I knew what my core audience wanted to hear.
Yeah.
I knew we were in a rock town.
Yep.
I knew they wanted to hear Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and, you know, Soundgarden and the real rock stuff. I knew that. And then sprinkle some of the other stuff in too. But then, you know, corporate comes in and they want to go by the charts. They want to go by the format. And that was another thing that was really, really hard for me is to kind of sit back and, you know, you gotta tread lightly with corporate, and, you know, you gotta be careful with, you know, you don't want to insult them. You don't want to make them think that you think that they're not doing the right thing. So that was always really difficult for me.
Yep.
Is, you know, oh, we're putting this song in heavy rotation this week. Well, nobody gives a shit about this song that's listening to this radio station right now.
I remember you towards the end of your time doing that, and I remember the change, you being a little more stressed out because you were like, this song isn't going to go anywhere. I know the song isn't going to go anywhere because of where we are. Like, people don't want to hear, and name the song, it doesn't even matter. But you could tell, okay, yeah, this one might get some traction here, and obviously you have some hits and misses, but that you knew what we were going to like and what we weren't going to like because you did it for so long there.
Right. And I know my market, and I knew the listeners and stuff. So that was really tough too. And but yeah, there's only so much you can do. And I always, like I said a few minutes ago, I always had a hard time with the consultants that thought that they had what it takes to control each individual radio station in any different market. Like every market is unique in its own way. And Portland has always been, you know, I mean, we definitely, we have our alternative fans for sure, but CYY has always been a rock driven radio station.
Yeah.
You know,
the casual listener has no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So you have like Joey Disturbed, who wants to hear Down with the Sickness, and now he's hearing like Arcade Fire or something. He has no idea. And like I did college radio for 3 years, and even in that, you'd get pressure, and some of it might have been self-inflicted, but you get pressure from promotion companies, record labels. Hey, did you spin the new Slayer album? And it's like, well, I'm in a small college town. No one wants to hear Slayer. You know what I mean? So it's, I can't imagine on the corporate level, the non-college, but yeah, the average, you know, Joey Disturbed has no clue what's going on.
Joey Disturbed.
I'm going to call my friend Joey Disco, Joey Disturbed.
I love it.
That's freaking amazing. I love that.
Well, you remember when you guys put Opie and Anthony on in the morning?
Yeah.
And somebody called and they were looking for music, and they're like, yeah, if you want, I think it was Jim Norton. He was like, if you want Disturbed, call your buddy and have him hum it in your lap.
Yeah. Go hum your favorite Disturbed song in your and your girlfriend's lap is, what did he say? Something
Something like
along
that,
those lines.
yeah.
Oh my God, that was
Total
that
Jim
was
Norton, but at
Wayne.
the same
Wayne
time-
from Maine. He was the troll, man. He was a troll, and he got roasted every time too. He would call Opie and Anthony, and he would get roasted on the show. It was great.
But that was
that
I mean,
Stevie
that was
Seether?
Portland.
Stevie Seether or Joey Destroy?
Yeah, same idea. But that was Portland wanting music and not talk, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted their rock. So
Right. And that was another, decision that came outside of, the local market. That was a decision made by corporate. Nothing against Opie and Anthony, but it's and I'm a fan of Opie and Anthony. I think they're hilarious. But that, I'm not saying if I was for it or against it, but it wasn't my decision. And there's so many and it's more of that now than there ever has been. And I know I'm kind of, I feel like I might be painting a negative picture of radio today, but I do still love radio, and I do still think it's important. And I do believe that most people that are doing it, at least on a local front, do still enjoy doing it. They enjoy what they're doing. And I've always enjoyed connecting with my audience and, playing music that I enjoy and throwing out fun facts and being out there at shows and meeting and talking, like how I met you, Nate. And then I ended up meeting the two of you guys after that. It's just, it was a passion. I was so lucky to be able to do what I love to do. But in that being said, like it's just changed a lot. It's not as like, how do I say it? Help me out, boys. It's not as like,
it's not as personal.
One-on-one and personal.
It's
as it used to
formulaic.
be.
There's an algorithm, and you see it with like Spotify playlists now. You know what I mean? It's all
right.
A lot of it's pay to play. It's all curated.
What I was thinking about is like I used to call you or text you and be like, dude, you should play this song. And it would be a situation where you could play some kind of random deep cut that I'm asking if you could play. Let's say like Zebrahead. I was like, hey, can you play Zebrahead? And you're like, I could actually maybe spin that during Lunch Bunch, which was like a noon to 1 kind of special occasion where you can play some random deep cuts. But if you were to, you almost felt like the vibe I got, and the transparency you're talking about on the podcast is like, you wouldn't really be able to drop something like a Zebrahead single from 1998 during any other prime time during your session other than that Lunch Bunch, because you would get some kind of flack from maybe corporate or for not spinning, American Idiot for the millionth time or something.
Right. And that's a good point. And to that point, I did love the Lunch Bunch because that was my opportunity to kind of have fun. And before it was Throwback Lunch. This is back when it was Lunch Bunch. It was more just kind of like, so-and-so's birthday today, or let's play a couple requests. That was kind of like our hour to kind of like have a little fun. Mm-hmm. And no offense to Zebrahead. And what was the guy you had on again?
Greg.
His name?
Greg,
of course. Yeah, Greg. We played Zebrahead. We played Playmate of the Year. Great song.
Yeah.
And Greg would agree with this right now. If any station threw on, no corporate owned radio station is going to throw on a Zebrahead song right now.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen because they're going to get shit for it. If they get caught, so to speak. So everything is just kind of like, and maybe not every station, I probably shouldn't say that, but most stations are, not at liberty to just, throw on that random cut. And me being in radio, I understand, I get the whole thing. You want to play hits, you want to play familiarity, and I get that. And I understand why that's a thing. You want to keep people listening. But the days of, getting creative and just kind of having some fun and like, throwing a song on here and there. Most stations, it's just not a thing anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy because that's how some bands get broken on the radio. Like K-Rock out here, like playing Sublime, and Sublime became huge because of that kind of risk, I guess you'd say, to play a random ska band from Orange County at the time. But that flexibility, that kind of freedom was lost in translation in your tenure from the early 90s to when you left. Crazy. And it's too bad. And I think that's why we've seen such a...
Yeah, I heard that. Everybody okay?
Crazy thunder going on here right now.
Oh, was that thunder? Wow.
Yeah, I didn't fart. I swear that was actually crazy.
We'll leave
thunder
this
going
in.
on
We'll
right
leave
now.
this whole thing in.
Yeah.
Now, what were you saying, Nate? During his tenure? Yeah, obviously.
You're right. Yeah, there was like some more flexibility to do cool stuff like that, especially in the 90s, I'd say. And that corporate pressure might have taken away that.
Well, and a lot of it is like, lot of it was like, not to interrupt you, Nate, but a lot of it was like radio was, most stations that were doing well And most stations, a lot of stations were doing well because that's what people had. That's what their outlets were to listen to music. So
Yeah.
they were able to kind of do that. And the thing that really always bummed me out is like when things started to change with the digital platform and Spotify, I understand more than anybody, you need to make changes and you need to figure out how you can keep your audience engaged. But it became so intense in with some companies that they would freak out and they would expect they would give you some stations like would get, here's your playlist, here's your golds is what we call them in the radio business for older songs. Like, here's what you're playing for your gold base. Here's your new songs. Here's your new songs you're adding for the week. Here are your currents. And like, it got to the point where it was so not fun anymore. We need you to, create local blog posts. We need you to essentially become a local newspaper, and you need to come up with 2 local stories a day to put on the website, link to Facebook, engage the audience. And if you don't come up with the numbers, your goal for the month that we expect, there's gonna be, consequences, so to speak. Like, it got so just stressful and just not fun anymore.
So you talked about it not being fun, and this is kind of a little transition here. One part I imagine was fun was just all the shows. Obviously, we all love going to shows, but also meeting bands and interviewing. And luckily for us on this podcast, all the guests we've had have been pretty good. Like, you just cross your fingers, you catch them on a good day, they're in a good mood. But sometimes, I know it's going to come. We're going to get someone who just, their management forced them to do it. Was there anyone?
Juan, I think I know where you're going with this.
Was there anyone over the years where you were like, this isn't what I expected?
Oh, yes, and it breaks my heart.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was one of my favorite bands.
And you don't have to name names, but we'll take it if you want to give names.
Well, I'll follow it up with he did issue some sort of apology after. It was not to me directly. That would have been awesome. But I get a chance to interview Weezer. Like, and you remember the Weezer Jimmy Eat World Tenacious D show?
Yeah,
2001. Yep.
So that was a huge night for me, and the record rep for Interscope Records was, he's like, so they don't normally, Weezer's not ones for interviews. They haven't been doing it much lately. I know how much you love them. I set an interview up for you, which is like, I was half excited and half nervous because I'm like, all right, well, thank you, but now I feel like you're forcing them to do this.
Oh shit, yeah.
And Rivers was less than what's the word? Is participative?
Yeah, that works. Not even one word answers.
He was letting the band answer the questions.
Gotcha.
And he was reading a magazine while he had the microphone in his lap. I did ask him a question.
That's amazing.
I did ask him a question that
say it ain't so, Rob.
See what you did there, Tony. Twan. I see what you did, Twan. I did ask him a question that pertained to him, and he literally picked his microphone up and said, "I don't think my microphone's working," and put it back down and picked up his magazine.
Wow.
Damn, that's cold.
And he issued some statement like a year later or whatever, and he even wrote it might have been on Maladroit.
Mhm.
It was on one of their albums. I think it was the album. What was the album after the Green album? Was it Maladroit?
The Maladroit, yeah.
Come on, nerds.
Yep, it was. I think it was Maladroit, and then we got
Green Album.
Green Album was before that.
Right. So it was Maladroit and then Ratitude.
No, the with Perfect Situation. What's the name of that album? Make Believe.
Make believe. Yep.
Make Believe. So it was on
yeah.
Maladroit or Make Believe. I can't remember. One of those albums. And it was basically him kind of apologizing. And I guess it was originally written for a band, and I forget the band. It was one of the bands that they had opening up for them. But he basically apologized for kind of being a dick.
Wow.
And I know that song wasn't for me, but I was like, you know what? Everybody, and I learned this going through radio. I've interviewed many people. I've had really good interviews and really bad interviews with the same band.
Oh,
That's
wow.
crazy.
It all depends on what's going on in their life. You don't know what's going on in their life at the time, you know?
True.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. There's so many variables because you're on tour, and we all know how grueling it is to just travel, even on vacation. time changes, you're in a stuffy plane, traveling across the world's a whole other thing. So as a band, you're on tour, you're in the same bus with the same guys. Like, it's not
You
as
could
like
be sick. You could
Yeah.
have personal problems.
yeah.
There could be anything. So I always
playing
kind
the
of
same
took
set
that.
every night because you're not creative.
You're playing exactly. You're playing the same set every night. I always try to not take it personally. If I told you I never did take it personally, I'd be lying.
Yeah.
But I always tried not to take it personally. And I had plenty of bad interviews. I had plenty of good interviews.
Give us a good one.
Yeah, what was your
I've
best
had
one?
a lot of great interviews. So plain and simple, and I think I've told all of you this before.
I was gonna say I know this, but yeah.
The best interview I've ever had, and it's not even like one of my favorite artists. I think he's a great musician, and I think he's amazing at what he does, and I think he's perfect for his fans that like that kind of music. I don't hate it; it's just not my go-to. But before I even tell you who it is, we always had our annual concert, the Holiday Bazaar.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have, we would put a concert together every year right around the holidays with a couple different bands. And
Rob, can I guess real quick?
Go ahead.
This is a running joke. Was it Saliva?
It's funny you said that though, because Saliva is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Not to get off track, but Saliva is a perfect example of when I the first time I met Josie, the singer, he was the nicest, sweetest guy in the world. He was so awesome. We hung out, we drank, we partied. This was I think it was the 01 Holiday Bazaar.
Yep.
And the next time I saw him, he was very standoffish, didn't want to talk. But then I was like, what? This is so not like him. And then I found out that he just had a tooth pulled. Or he was about to get a tooth pulled or something. I don't remember. He had some sort of something going on where he was not having a good day. And then it's like, oh, all right, well, that makes sense. You never know what's going on in someone's life. But anyway, getting back to my favorite, we had a lineup of bands playing the Holiday Bazaar. It was Disturbed, who I'd interviewed a few times, and Flyleaf was on the bill. Nonpoint was on the bill, and Stone Sour was on the bill. So the first time I ever met Corey Taylor, and I say meet, I say that I use the term meet loosely. Slipknot was in town, and we got our picture taken with them, all of them with their masks on. And I went up to Corey, and I didn't do an interview or anything for summer. I think the Face Melter might have already done the video, but we're just doing the photo up now. Yeah. And I just walked up to Corey. I was like, "What's up, man?" He has a mask on. He just growled at me. Just growled at me. I was like, "All right, okay, all right." So now I get this in my mind as he's about to come into my studio for an interview a couple of years later. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, well, he's probably not that friendly of a guy, or he's, not my favorite band. He's just going to be like, not want to do this. He's going to be in and out, and he's going to give me shit. He's going to be a dick. We're not going to have a good interview, whatever. That's just what was going on in my mind at the day. Turned out to be, in my career in radio, my most favorite person to interview. Wow. And I get the opportunity to interview him 3 times. The man is hilarious. He's intelligent. He enjoys doing interviews. He's a good dude. And just my abs. I get excited when I knew that Stone Sour or Slipknot was coming around, because I was going to get a chance to hang out with him. Just the coolest friggin' guy.
That is awesome. And funny, because we actually, in prep for this, talked about Slipknot because they had an album anniversary this week. So I was like, no, Rob definitely talked to Corey a couple times. I'm sure he has insight on that. So that's awesome, because we all love Slipknot. We all love Stone Sour. So that's pretty cool.
Never would have predicted that he'd be my favorite person in my career to interview. Like, I never would have predicted that.
Well, especially after that first interaction.
Yeah, exactly. The growl.
With a mask on.
With the mask on, before masks were cool.
It would have been more weird without a mask.
Yeah, it probably would have.
I'm not supposed to be wearing a mask right now, am I?
No, you're good.
Right now, right?
You're good.
Okay,
we're safe. Yeah, I think.
All right, good.
So it's funny. You got Nate and I tickets to do a meet and greet with Stone Sour like 7 or 8 years ago, And the first thing he said to us was, "Check out my fucking sunburn, man." He didn't growl at us. Remember that, Nate?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. That was one of those good times where you had tickets just kicking around, and we were able to get backstage and meet him. So thanks, man.
My first, absolutely. And that was one of the things I enjoy too, is I loved living it, but I loved sharing the experience too. Nate and I feel like, I think we've all gone to concerts together. But I feel like Nate and I would kind of, what we would call, we would go on tour in a sense,
Oh, yeah.
We had our Rocktoberfest, and in our Rocktoberfest, and you're gonna nail this better than I will, but it was just so fucking all over the place. It just goes to show you how much like our range in music, we love everything. And you would always go to anything I wanted to go to, and I would go to anything you wanted to go to.
Yep.
Because it was a concert, it was music,
Mm-hmm.
and it all blends together. I actually got people are listening right now aren't going to see this, but I've actually got all the ticket
nice.
albums
Yes.
here. So
Send me a picture
I
of
can
that.
cheat if I need to. But what was Oktoberfest or Rocktoberfest?
Rocktoberfest was basically a annual, I think we did it 3 years in a row, maybe 2 years, I can't remember, where we would determine by going on, this is super nerdy, by the way, on
we had to find 3 in a row.
Yeah, we'd go on Polestar.com, which for anyone listening is a concert database. Basically, it's actually an industry tool, but for civilians, it can be used to just find shows or whatever. So we would look at a close market, New England, of course, we were there, and just find like a string of shows back to back, and then book a trip, basically like a mini staycation type thing, usually in Massachusetts, sometimes Maine or even Connecticut, and just go to a bunch of random shows. And it didn't matter if it was the same style of music, like you said, Rob. I think one year was like Aerosmith and like Hardfire or something.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was super cool. It was basically like a mini festival, just to like
that you
guys made on your own.
Yeah.
I just found Rocktoberfest 2005. I have my ticket albums here. So
Yes.
Nice. Heck yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, and going back to the trade spend, like this, a lot of these, thanks to you and your generosity and the record labels, they would, provide comp tickets, sometimes dinner, sometimes whatever. It didn't really matter. Like that stuff, like you said, was all a bonus. Like we're gonna go no matter what. We're gonna do something.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna do something cool no matter what.
So we're gonna have to do a little research here, because I feel like the missing concert stub was one of those club shows that we went to that they just kind of ushered us in, so we don't have the stub that we would always look for on the floor, and half the time we'd be able to find one just so we could put it in our books for the nerdery.
Pre-COVID stuff. Yeah.
2005 was. Do you remember the Aerosmith Lenny Kravitz show?
Yes. Yep.
That was the night after Lenny Kravitz's dad died.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Wow.
And I just remember, oh my God, I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. He was, he sang Let Love Rule, which was like one of the first songs he ever came out with. And he said that people had asked him, like, what are you doing playing a concert tonight? Like, relax, like take the night off, clear your head. And I remember him saying, he's like, there's no place I'd rather be than where I am right now. And remember, he went through the whole crowd, and
yeah,
it was such a good show. And then the next night we saw Gwen Stefani on Halloween.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
With the Black Eyed Peas.
With the Black Eyed Peas. Yeah, it was a great show. That was an awesome show.
And then there was probably like a Taproot or a Morning Wood show in there that we don't have the ticket stuff for.
Yep.
Or a Hard Fi, maybe. I don't remember.
Yeah.
That's great.
We can revisit all of the Rocktoberfest, but that was a great tradition.
Yeah, that was super fun.
It's funny, Rob, you mentioned, getting to share the love and bring your friends to shows. You and I were talking the other night about a show that we were all at back in, I want to say it was like 2012 or 2013, something like that. We went and saw Manchester Orchestra at the State Theater, and our buddy, you know where I'm going with this.
I already know where you're going. This is so great. It's one of my favorite stories.
So it's during a very quiet, somber song, and our buddy Brian will not shut up. And
By the way, I've wanted to do something along the lines of what you're about to say many times, but the fact that I didn't have to do it was even more of a bonus. So
we're all in the upper bar hanging out. There's like, it's probably a half full venue. Manchester hadn't quite gotten big yet. And the rep is like shushing Brian because he won't stop, and it's kind of quiet and people are taking in the show. And
Gleason's a talker. He likes to talk during shows. Even when the band's doing a mellow kind of quiet part of the show, like he's trying to tell you a story for something that happened 8 years ago, and
Yeah.
like, dude, shut up.
So the rep just looks at him, shushes him one last time, grabs his flip flop, and chucks it at him from across the bar.
Hits
And
him
Rob
right
and
in
I-
the side of the head.
And we just die. We're dying. So now the place is staring at us because we're laughing and making fun of Brian. It was ridiculous. But yeah, that was one of those concert memories that I had with you. That was like, this is perfect. This is amazing.
Yep.
Nate, I think you were there. Were you there, Nate?
I think I was there. Yeah, Manchester Orchestra. Yep. Nice.
That was a fun one. The other one, remember we AWOL Nation came and remember who opened for them?
No.
Tiny little venue, State Theater, had 1,500 people. We're
Hold
at
on.
Brian, you'll remember.
Hold on.
We were at
I know
Brian Baroo's
exactly. It
before.
was Imagine Dragons.
Yeah. And we were at
wow.
Brian Baroo's before the show, and the drummer
Yep.
was just hanging out at Brian Baroo's. And this was before they got huge. And you're like, that's just the drummer for Imagine Dragons, no big deal. And then they were
just hanging out.
They surpassed, they were playing
And
this tiny little venue.
And they're one of the bands that never like really completely cashed in on the whole I'm a huge act right now, I don't need to talk to anybody anymore. Like I haven't seen them since they got blown up, but I know people that have, actually I know somebody who's my friend Patty is cousins with the drummer. And they're one of those bands that have just stayed true to like, cool, we made it. We have hit records, but we're not going to be douches.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is great. So, Rob, last year I went to the Slipknot annual festival, Knotfest, and one of the bands that opened was Volbeat. And my dad came with me. And the reason why he came is he was at one of the fairs a few years ago now, and you were there, and you were chatting him up. And I think he said he liked Def Leppard, and you were like, well, check out this CD by Volbeat. So he was a big fan of Volbeat, and he came to that show with me. So without that interaction, I would have gone to that show alone.
That is so funny, and I'm a huge Def Leppard fan. They're if anybody tells me what my favorite live band is, Def Leppard's my favorite live band.
Nice.
That's awesome.
It's just it might be kind of weird to a lot of people, but like I'm an '80s guy. I grew up in the '80s. I was a kid in the '80s, but Def Leppard's one of my favorite live bands. And Volbeat's one of those, like, I don't know. They're one of the I don't even know how to say this. Like they're a newer band, but they have such a kind of a classic rock sound to them, and they have their own sound to them.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons why I dig Volbeat, because they're a rock band, but they're fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just fun to listen to, and I think maybe that's probably why touring with Def Leppard worked out so well for them.
You said being an 80s music guy, that's kind of one of the reasons how we bonded, was watching 80s music videos on Saturday night before we went out to the bars or whatever. And
I may have had some totally 80s on VH1 Classic stored up in the old
nice.
DVR.
Yeah, and there were many a time where we weren't able to be together while watching those, and you'd send me videos of yourself playing the keyboards on the wall during Journey's Separate Ways. So
Journey's Separate Ways. How can you possibly have an amazing song and such a horrible video? It's happened many times. Journey with Separate Ways is a perfect example.
Oh my God.
that might have been the 80s in general for a lot of things.
Oh my God. But that was what's so great about it. I love the 80s. I love the 80s.
Out of Touch, Out of Time? Worst video, amazing song.
Oh my
Hall
God.
Notes, yeah.
Out of Touch, Hall Notes was a terrible video.
Yeah.
They're crawling through drum heads
Low budget.
that are twice the size of them. Like it's
But those
But
were
hey,
fun times.
at the time back in 1984, Mon, the year you were born, I'm pretty sure that was some pretty cool shit.
Yeah, exactly. Looks like a Nickelodeon set now when you watch it.
Right, exactly.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Back when again, insert MTV used to play music videos. A joke here is that they used to, and they were great or terrible.
I was looking through the guide last night, and MTV had they were playing a movie followed by a 4-hour marathon of ridiculousness. I feel like ridiculousness is kind of holding MTV on air right now, which is really weird. And I love going up to people and being like, oh, hey, I saw something on VH1 the other day. And I'll be like, do you know what VH1 stands for? And nobody ever knows what it stands for. Do you guys know what it stands for?
Video Highlight 1.
Video
Don't.
hits?
I got nothing.
Nate?
Video hits? One.
Video Hits 1.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Good
Wow.
call.
I
You
didn't
nailed
know
it.
that.
Video
Nerdery.
Hits does not play any videos.
Flavor of Love.
Nope. Yeah. Flavor
Yeah.
of Love.
Yeah.
I love New York.
It's sad. That's like that goes like kind of along with radio. That kind of like the sad, some of the sad parts that happen with radio. I always get bummed about that, but I also get bummed about like you can't turn on TV anymore and see a video anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it goes right into what you were saying earlier about the corporate kind of takeover in MTV. Also, MTV stands for music television, but and I haven't watched I haven't watched MTV in so long, but I mean, it's hard to find music on that channel, so you think they would just change the name altogether. But it
and then they came out with MTV2.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had videos on MTV2, but then MTV2 became essentially the same thing regular MTV was.
Right.
Yeah.
Does MTV2 still exist? I don't even
know, man. I haven't had an MTV station in years.
Well, then Fuse came along, and I don't think
Fuse, yeah.
Fuse was cool, and then Palladium was cool. Remember Palladium? They used to play like live show too. Live shows
was awesome. Yeah.
And then I told you guys all about. God, I'm already forgetting the name of it. Is it Switchback? What's the new live?
Oh, the one that you just sent us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the new live video thing via Roku, and it's awesome. And here's some nerdery right here for you guys that love to go to concerts like all of us do. I'm missing concerts so much right now, as all of you guys are, I'm sure. Like it's
Absolutely.
it's one of the elements of my life that's really missing. So I needed to get a new TV anyway, but I got a new 65-inch TV and a new sound bar and subwoofer, so I can get drunk on Saturday nights and watch concerts and get up into the TV and put my hands up and like kind of like crank it up and piss off my next door neighbor because it's the closest thing I have right now to going to a show.
Yeah.
And that's what. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of the. So I've been buying Blu-rays. I've been buying Blu-rays on eBay and on Amazon so I can watch concerts in my house.
Yep.
Wow.
Juan's laughing his ass off, and I love it. But I'm serious. It happens.
I know. Sell us joke, bro. I'm laughing to the mic.
I'm laughing because it's me.
Yeah.
That's
you doing
me.
the same thing?
I got the 65-inch. I got the sound bar. I got all my old DVDs. I'm watching them. YouTube. Go to YouTube. YouTube's great for that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, you can actually get high def stuff on YouTube and watch it. We have a thing at the house with my roommates called Saturday Night Live. Pretty creative, huh?
Yeah.
We're gonna call it Saturday Night Live. But yeah, every Saturday night we pick a concert every week. We take turns.
Oh, I like that.
And yeah, so it's kind of getting getting the concert fix the best you can.
Wow.
Stingray, right? That's the name of the
Stingray.
Yep.
Are you Stingray?
Yes. Who wants to know? Earworm terrorism. Trademark. Trademark. Trademark.
Yeah.
That's mine. I came up with that.
And that's the other thing is like when are we all going to see a show again? Who knows? I mean, most tours. I had tickets to the Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Poison, Joan Jett show, which was supposed to happen in August at Fenway. I was so excited. I've seen all of the bands multiple times, but to see them all at Fenway, I was so excited for it. And it's postponed to next year. Most of the concerts, they're trying to postpone it to the actual date the following year, which I think is kind of the best way to do it. But but it's just, I don't know. It's so crazy. The world we're living in right now, it's just insane. It's not even like you don't know when you're going to see a concert again.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
I was on Twitter today and there was a meme kind of going around. A bunch of places were saying, post the last picture of the last show you went to. And I had to go back to October of last year. And I'm like, holy shit, it's been 9 months since I've been to a concert. Like,
I don't even know what the last concert was. What was your last concert?
It was Incubus playing
oh yes,
Make Yourself front to back.
Yeah,
front to back at State Theater. Yeah, which was a good show. I enjoyed that night a lot. But that was the last time I saw a concert, and it was 9 months ago.
It's so weird. Something that we take for granted that the five of us do regularly, or the four of us do regularly because we love doing it, and then all of a sudden it's just like not
just gone. Yeah,
it's weird.
We've lamented on that a lot.
It shows you how fast things just completely change. Like me and Steph my wife had seen Tom Green play a small little stand-up comedy show the Saturday before everything went into lockdown. So it was like, talk about crazy transition. Like we were in this tiny club, like small cap. I'm saying like 30 person cap. We're all watching Tom Green in this little like basement comedy cellar. And Monday comes, it's like, I get furloughed for a week. The whole country's going in lockdown. The media is loving all the attention they're getting on, like reporting the coronavirus. And it's just like mass hysteria, and yeah, it's still sketchy and things are crazy. And we talk about it on this podcast quite a bit. Even 2021 with these concerts being postponed, like we don't really know. We think maybe that might be a placeholder to kind of keep people excited per se. It's hard to think that concerts are just going to just resume on schedule. Like everything's just fine and dandy.
And what will be the limitations when they do? Like,
exactly.
I mean, are people going to have their own like little,
Bubble.
their little bubble that they, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was it you that Tony, was it you that sent me that the flaming lips one? That was so great.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Nate was like, "This is probably the only way this will work is if everybody's in that hamster ball that Wayne Coyne comes out in." So, Google Wayne Coyne hamster ball on YouTube.
Wayne Coyne hamster ball. Oh my God, that was another great time. All of us meeting Wayne Coyne. Come on, that was amazing.
I was telling this story to these guys the other night. We had gotten you tickets for your birthday because you're a July baby like me, and we get down there and we have okay seats. We're underneath the awning at the Bank of America Pavilion in Boston, which is this big, semi-big outdoor venue. And you're like, I might be able to get us better tickets, guys, because your connections with the radio. So you got us better tickets, and you're like, yeah. And they told us to just kind of go over to the fence over here. And hang out. And then the drummer came out and got us. And we went backstage and we met Wayne and Steven and took pictures with them. And then our seats were like, 8 rows from the stage?
Yep.
And for anybody that's listening, like the drummer to come out and get you is not a normal thing.
No.
Yeah.
It's at least a manager or a tour hand or a record rep or somebody.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm the drummer. Follow me.
You were just texting him on the train the whole way down. He's like, yeah, just come over to there and I'll come get you.
And I think it's because they weren't doing any meet and greets on the tour. It was just one of those things. I had reached out to the record rep and I said, we'd love to chat with Wayne and meet the band or whatever. So he kind of set it up that way.
Yep.
And the drummer just, hey, follow me, guys.
Yeah, that was amazing. And it was cool to just sit back there with those guys. Wayne's like, hey, yeah, this was July of 11. And he's like, yeah, I just heard we're playing. You guys are from Portland. We're playing there in October. And it
wasn't even on the calendar yet.
Yeah, it wasn't announced. They're playing the State Theater in October in Portland. And we're like, well, we'll see you there too.
Yep. And that was a great show as well.
Yeah. I have video and I have to pull it up of Wayne going over me and my brother in the gerbil ball from the State Theater. Yeah.
Yep. And then we saw him at Nativa as well.
Yeah. That was in 2010. That was 10 years ago, like today.
Why did you go to Nativa?
I didn't go to that one. I missed that one. I've heard about it, and it was like a one-time fest, right, in Maine?
Yep.
Yeah, it was the one. It was the one time because I know I was with these two guys. I wasn't sure if you were there.
Rob, the Crash Kings suck.
The Crash Kings don't suck. It's an inside joke.
It's an inside joke. We love the Crash Kings.
Oh my God.
The Crash Kings saved
Crash
Rob.
Kings suck.
They saved you that next morning. So.
Crash Kings saved my ass. We don't need to go into that right now.
Yeah, that's a good story though. Yeah, no, that was a blast. We slept in tents in the field in Oxford, Maine, and Flaming Lips and Sound Tribe Sector 9 and the Crash Kings, a few other bands. Yeah.
That was a night for sure.
Yeah, I have one of my all-time favorite pictures from that night is the three of us with Face Melter. Me and Nate.
Yes. Yep. But Face Melter Sean.
Yep.
Good times.
Yeah, it's been 20 years too. It's been 20 years since I moved to Portland and started at CYY, and it all seems like it seems like it's been 30 years, but it also seems like it started yesterday.
Yep.
It's crazy. And
I
don't know. We've conquered some memories, boys.
Oh yeah, we got more, and you'll probably come back on, right? I mean, we got.
Oh, absolutely. We have so much to talk about, and we haven't. Nate and I haven't even talked about our Lollapalooza trips. We did 3 of them. We haven't even talked about those.
I remember hearing you call in. Yeah, no, there's stories there we'll save for another episode.
We haven't even talked about Virgin Fest in Baltimore. We haven't even talked about Nate. Well, actually, that was at Virgin Fest when he.
Don't save it. Save it.
We'll save it.
Save it. Keep the lid on that one. We'll save it.
All right. No, there was some good ones, but thank you guys so much for having me on. I've been checking out the show a little bit, and obviously we've been talking about doing this, and
thanks for coming, man.
No, it's been super fun reminiscing and chatting about music and the industry and concerts, and I love you guys, and I love what you're doing, and you're killing it, and keep doing it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on, man. It's been fun.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's the epitome of nerdery. So we're just kind of going full circle here, right? So
Absolutely. It's the first time we've all been together too.
Yeah.
yeah,
Straight a long time, actually. Very long.
Together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Thanks, Zoom.
All right. Left-handed handshakes for everybody.
Lefty handshakes, baby.
We'll
Yeah.
save-
Lefty fist bumps.
We'll save that
Yeah.
story for next time too.
That's a good
Yeah.
story, too. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Rob.
all
Yeah.
right, dude. Have a good night.
No, that was awesome. That was good.
Nice. That was one of my absolute best friends, Rob. Known him for a really long time. We grew up with him with the radio and stuff, and he became a really dear friend of mine. And so it's cool to hear his insight. A lot of the stories that he was telling, I think us three had kind of gotten some of those stories early on, but to get him onto the podcast tonight and kind of tell the world about his insight and his experience in the industry was really cool. So really gracious for him to come on. I really, really appreciate it. Love you, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, you said it great right there. That's it. It was a blast to talk to Rob in this format. I've talked to Rob, I don't even know how many times in a friend format at shows. Like I said in the interview, calling in to request my favorite song when I was 17. He was there for that too. So those were my first couple of memories of talking to Rob. That, and I think seeing The Used and Thrice at the State Theater. I remember being in the crowd and hearing his voice, and I didn't know what he looked like at the time, but I heard his voice during the beginning of maybe Blue and Yellow, and I was like, holy shit, that's Rob from the radio. Nice. And I'm 18, senior in high school. This is cool. And little did I know he'd end up being a pretty good friend of mine down the road. So very cool to talk to him in this way.
Yeah, for me, it's all the behind the scenes stuff. Because like if you think about what we nerd out about, which with all our guests and when we have our own conversations, a lot of it's behind the scenes stuff. It's like the production that goes behind the music and all that. So to hear some of that from him, and actually one of the things that stands out is just the top 5 at 5, which was a daily Monday through Friday, almost like a TRL type thing where you call in and they tally up the votes and whatnot. But like growing up, you just want to hear like, I don't know, Rustic Overtones or whoever it is. You don't think that like someone has to physically answer that call and tally, and it's a whole production where now it would just be online. That's a lot of overhead.
Yeah. No, it shows you the times. It was all analog. It was like someone had to literally answer the phone and like do a running tally,
Well, one thing I should have asked him is like, how many votes did it take to crack the top 5? Because I remember
That's a good question.
supporting local bands in high school and whatnot. It was always like, hey, we should get, I don't know, Jeremiah Freed or whoever it is, local band. We should try to get them to chart. And
6 gig,
and it's like,
Yep.
What would it have taken? Like a few of us just calling in? Probably not. Probably a lot more than that.
Yeah, it was always fun to listen back and hear if your song made it. And we skewed local. We wanted the Rustic Overtone songs to hit. We wanted them to beat out those big national acts like Tool or whoever. As much as I love those bands too, I wanted to hear Rustic win because they were ours. They were from Maine. They were from our area, and we saw them live and saw them out in the, I physically run into those guys at concerts too, maybe at Incubus or whatever. It was cool.
Yeah, that's a good call. It's like, we're a local rooting for the home team kind of thing, like, yeah, we're going to all these like national shows or whatever, but to see our local heroes like Rustic Overtone, 6 gig, and get them on the charts, get them to, take the number 1 spot on the top 5 at 5 is like our local TRL. So it's just like, let's see these guys. Let's like have them kind of have some, claim to fame and success on a national level, because I know Rustic was getting there and we really were like and trying, which is cool. And it kind of shows you that the fan base and us as nerds were really kind of always rooting for the home team.
And getting back to Rob in the top 5, I know he took that seriously. That was not something that it was like plug and play. I don't care who wins. He was into it. He's a music nerd of the highest order, just like we are. And like you said, he hung on to all those promo things and remembers who he's talked to and where. And yeah, he loved. That was a labor of love to try to find out who was number 1 every day, and then at the end of the year to find out who was number 1 for the year. And I remember pretty early on in our close friendship, him putting together the top 500, and he just going over to his house, hanging out, looking at the list that he had. He's like, I'm calling this band, I'm calling this manager, I'm trying to get little snippets on the radio, and he just loved it. It was just a total different type of nerdery, and he had people that he could call to, talk to Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray, or talk to the lead singer of Lit, or you know what I mean? Like that's he loved that stuff just as much as we do now. So That was
Yeah.
cool.
So two things come to mind. One from the interview, and then another story that I'll share. But when he said "Jewel the Tool," and like we all laughed, but it's like, no, I think when you look at the bookends of the radio station that he worked for, those really were the bookends. And
Yeah.
shout out to Chip, who's a listener of ours. He made a comment online. I think I commented on a post he made about Def Leppard and how I said I was a fanboy. And he made a comment, you guys have a wide range of interests. And it's so true. And to be completely honest, a lot of it stems from CYY early on, because you had that versatility. You had that wide range. Like I remember hearing Beastie Boys Intergalactic transitioning to probably Tool or something, which is really cool. But the second thing I was going to say is in 5th grade, so this puts me at 95, 96. So COI was new. One of our assignments was to write a little about me by essay. And I never forget, I obviously haven't because I'm mentioning it now. One of the things I put in there was my favorite radio station was WCYY 94.3. So that shows you, like, I was an OG. Wow. And they did, when you're 11 and what you listen to on the radio definitely shapes, your post, your bookends.
Yeah, and I remember that when it came on, I had a CD player tape deck in my room, and I had blank tapes, and I would record songs off of CYY for my little tape player that I could take with me portably as an 11-year-old. So, like, my friends by Red Hot Chili Peppers would come on, and I'd be like, play, like, record, and I'd record it, and it would go, and then I'd hit stop, and I'd have that song on there and ready for the next one when there was something that I wanted to hear come on next. So,
I love that.
CYY obviously molded us as fans as far as radio went, and it was during, one of the busier, more hectic heyday times for radio. Us coming up and music in general. We've talked about it before, how, big music was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And CYY was big for us.
Yeah, late 90s. It kind of handed itself to that scenario, which is really cool. And like the transition, I remember hearing like a soundbite for CYY. It was Rave and Rage. And they'd be like, they name all these like heavy bands because it was the Face Melter. I remember laughing every time. It'd be like Slayer, Slipknot, Sixpence None the Richer. It was like, what?
Like, they're not heavy.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's like, because they were emerging artists. That was what Rave and Rave was, but it was just like so funny, like Sixpence None the Richer.
Yeah, but they'd play stuff like that. They'd jump around from band to band like that. So
I used to love Rave and Rage. It was on Thursday nights.
Yep. Oh, you mean Spin Out?
Oh, Spin Out.
Spin Out too.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Spin Out.
Yeah, no, Spin Out was a local, and not all local, but indie music show they did from 7 to 10 on Thursday nights. Face Melter did it for a while, and then Mark Curdo, people who are familiar with the Northeast and record reps and radio personalities, Mark Curdo was big into it after the fact. So yeah, Spin Out was cool because you would hear stuff that you wouldn't hear anywhere else on the radio. Maybe college radio station. That's about it. Yeah. You weren't getting it on any mainstream radio.
It was the closest thing to college radio on a big station.
Yep.
Like in the late 90s, they would probably play like Soulfly, something like that. Like it was adjacent to kind of what was hot.
Well, and right down to our friends' band, Station 85. They'd play those guys.
That's right.
So kids we went to high school with who had a band that put some music out locally, they'd play them too. I remember driving around with the drummer, who was one of our close friends. Like, oh man, you're on the radio. This is awesome.
You know what's cool about when I met Rob is, it was strictly music. The bond was music. It's like this Audio Slave podcast is like all music. It's like the central core is just geeking out about music. So we would like see each other at shows and we just nerd out, It's just like, all right, cool. And then you start to meet some really cool people that way. And Rob's become one of my best friends because of that. And to have that be like kind of like the tie between all this stuff, like, man, like if it wasn't for this, if he wasn't in radio, maybe I would have never met, someone like Rob, which is really crazy. Or even you three, in high school, because there's a mix of people. So that music bond is pretty tangible, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's why the bond that I ended up having with him after the fact, you introduced me to Rob because he'd come around, we'd hang out just kind of in groups or go to shows every now and then in groups. And then I started hanging out with him. And we always talked music. It always came back to music. He's like, here, Sin, you like you like nerd, you're a nerd, you love music, this is what you do, Tony. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, this is why you're friends with Nate. This makes sense to me. This is why we're friends now. So that's how we ended up becoming close with him. Is the bond was always music, and it didn't matter what kind. There was never we're listening to this one genre. It was whatever's on is on, and let's find something we like from there, and then we go.
And I met him through you guys, so it's just like the nerdery continues. And if I think about, I probably know maybe 5 or 6 people in my life that, in their mid-30s, have a photo book of all the ticket stubs for shows they've ever gone to. You two are 2 of them, and Rob's another one.
Yep.
It's no accident he's on the podcast. He was on the podcast tonight.
Yeah, going that level is different. Yeah, when you have everything kind of organized, and that takes priority before getting something like organizing your refrigerator or something. Like, you have all your ticket stubs perfectly organized by date, photos, backstage passes, the whole 9 yards. It takes a backseat for other chores, but nerdery kind of takes the front seat. So it helps that Rob's a good person, and we're all good people. It's like, it shows that music is kind of brings the good out of people, I think.
Yep.
is a kind of recurring theme, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, he was just fun to be around, and enjoyed the party that surrounded those concerts and surrounded those times, just because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to just spread the love and get people out to music, because it was something he was passionate about, and he surrounded himself with people like us who also liked that stuff and loved that stuff. So
yeah, we didn't even touch on it. Like, we were gonna say, like, what's the most rewarding thing for him? And I know he's told me personally, it's like, man, like, meeting people like you and giving you guys concert tickets so you can enjoy this thing. Like, for him, it's a fringe benefit. For us, it's like, oh man, like, I can actually get to the show now, whether it was a sold out gig or and meeting these bands and so forth. Like, it's like, it brings it to another level. So I have to have that industry in, and it wasn't like it was super organic. It was like, nice, man, like, let's hang out. Oh, cool. Like, let's go to this show. Awesome. Let's go to this festival. Let's chat with this band. Like you said, he's doing these interviews or whatever, and it becomes more personable. And Maine's a secondary market, so it's almost like more accessible, because it's not like you're in Boston or New York City. It's like a secondary market where they're hanging out at the bar that we're going to be at anyway.
yeah,
So,
yep.
Yeah, it was always come hang out. I remember,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with going to shows with Rob, it was always through you guys, and it was always like, hey, we're all going to this. You want to come? Cool. And then, I'd get there. Oh, here's a ticket. And it's like, oh, that's a bonus.
Yeah,
I'm in.
yep.
I'm in.
Yeah.
He always found a way to a handful of them, and it wasn't about that. It wasn't about trying to get in for free. It was more about, how can we all go do this fun thing together? And that's what it was. We found these fun things to go do, and music was the passion for all of us. So that's how we did it.
Yeah, I wonder how this story plays out in other markets, because I know in where we're from in Maine, like, that was like the only thing really going on, in the dead of the winter. Like, what else are you gonna do? That's like a concert coming to town, especially one that you're really stoked on. Is like, there's really nothing better going on in the whole state. Like, that's like it. Like, we're lucky we lived in Portland. Imagine living in like somewhere northern
Small,
Maine. You gotta come all the way down to Portland. Vicinity thing for us was really fortunate, but to be around good people that all kind of appreciated the same thing. It was like a collective of like-minded people in a really positive state. So
For sure. Yeah, that was a fun conversation. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add.
What I have to add is just that we will 100% have him on again, and he
Oh,
would,
hell yeah.
I think he would definitely come on.
Yep.
I do want to get more into, like, and if he's willing to share it, just like the pressures, not from his company, but from labels and whatnot. You hear about, in the financial world, you hear about like the big 4, the big 5 financial firms. Well, in the record industry, it's always the same thing. It's like the big 4, big 5, and they, have the subsidiaries and the imprints and all that. I love to just hear, because you hear about how cutthroat it was, the payola stuff, and if he's willing to tap into that, I would geek out about that.
For sure. I think he would talk a little bit about that. I think he had reps that I remember meeting a couple on more than one occasion who he loved, depending on it wasn't even about the band they were repping. It was more about just, oh, so-and-so's in town. I love her. Let's go out and have dinner. And we did that. Let's go have drinks. They're not even here. They want me to spin the single. No big deal. We'll probably do it. But I'm excited to have a beer with this person, because it's been, 8 months or 4 months since they've been up. So that was always kind of fun too, is that behind the scenes, yeah, they're coming up. They want to go out to get sushi and talk about the song they want us to, CYY to spin. I'm like, well, that sounds like fun. I'd love to sit in on that. So we just go do it.
That's awesome. That shows you the power in relationships. You know, if you have a great record rep, that's just a straight up good person, he or she, just like an awesome human being. It's like you want to be around that person. And if they're repping a band that's kind of, you never even heard of them, like you're going to give it that much more time of day. So to have like a good army of people that is like representing you, that's coming from a good place, like changes everything. Yeah, going out to dinner is one thing. All the perks is one thing. Like it's giving you like an opportunity to like check this band in like the most like clean, like organic format. Like, all right, I will check this out because I like you, and this therefore I'm going to check this out, rather than like it being stuffed down your throat. Like you should do this. So good on the record labels to like seek out good talent. I think it can definitely go either way. But yeah, Tone, I remember those things where a lot of those reps were just straight up fun to be around. It's like, nice, man, I'll check out that band. I know that you're not. It's your job, understandably. But the fact that you're bringing, me out to dinner is just a perk. Like I'll check out the band just because I like you as a human. So
yeah, it didn't even have to have dinner. It was more just they're coming up and maybe we're getting a beer or two. And
yeah,
hey, check this. You guys are gonna like this one. This one will fit you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You nailed it, Nate. Like relationships, and that goes. And again, that's it's kind of a salesy marketing thing, but it all does get back to relationships. So when I was in college radio, 15 years ago now, I was the metal director for my college radio station, and there were a few contacts from promotion companies and labels that were just dicks. Like they would just expect you to play. Like this guy, I would screen his calls, so he would leave voicemails, and I won't say his name or the company. He was like, "This is so and so from blank blank blank. The new Exodus album dropped. I expect it charted at 1." It's like, dude, like read a room,
Yeah.
the more you push, the harder I'm going to push back and not play them. And that was like small stakes. I can't imagine a big station like, relatively big like CYY or, some of the big, you said K-Rock, Nate, some of the big boys. It's like a whole different ball game. It's cutthroat. It's a lot of pressure. But the ones that have good relationships, they can cut through and connect with people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's compounding.
Yep, absolutely. The good relationships are key, and that's why he did what he did for as long as he could do it, Rob, on the radio, because he, fit the town and fit the aesthetic that CYY was bringing, and was able to, meld with all these different personalities and make it work there for as long as he did. So it was really cool to have him on. We've got way more to talk to him about in the future. That will be a recurring guest, I'm sure. I'd love to have him on again. We got more stuff to talk about.
Yeah, that's episode 1 of many for sure. Yeah, all the deep dives and so forth. Because he's a personal friend, but his insight is extremely valuable. Because I almost joined the music industry, kind of based on what he would tell me, and a lot of it is maybe the reason why I didn't even go in the first place, just because it was better to be a casual fan rather than an industry person, that takes away the fun out of it per se. I think that's why he left. He said it wasn't fun anymore. So when I was going to join, it was like 07, 08. I mean, the industry was essentially crashing at that time. That was like
everything was crashing.
yeah, exactly.
Well, now you joined when everything is crashing again, but you did it on your own terms with us, and you just have to listen to me, bitch. So
yeah, it's the new format. This is what Rob's talking about. The new format is free, independent. You can actually do what you want. You can play the songs you want to play. You can be yourself. So independence the way. So I can imagine where the agenda and the formula that was built, maybe, as far back as like the 50s, was just kind of the way you did it, and just kind of bled into like the 90s and late 2000s, where it was like, all right, this isn't going to work anymore. So
yeah, and that's why it's finally being rejected wholesale, right? And people are turning to, there's a new platforms to find music and talk, and we're one of the talk platforms, but we also talk about music. So you're going to get everything here, and it is what you want to put on. So if you're still listening to us right now, thank you for putting us on. And this is why radio is having trouble to the level that they're having. They're trying to cookie cutter it to everybody and force things down your throat that people don't want anymore. Yeah. So you pick what you want. Like we've talked about Rogan a ton. We'll listen to when he had Jon Stewart on this week. That's right up my alley. I listen to the whole thing. And you pick and choose what you want to listen to. Now you don't have to be force fed the same thing from 3 different outlets, and that's it. And
you see the evolution. Like, so you have terrestrial radio, and then you have Sirius XM, which is it's still curated, but it's divided up into kind of smaller chunks, more specific niches. And now it's like Spotify, they'll curate based on your likes. So I wonder what's next. I don't know if there is a next.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're here for it though. We'll talk about it.
What do you send a blood sample and they give you like your next favorite band?
Maybe. I mean, they definitely are listening right now, right?
23andMe curates a playlist for you.
Oh man, your blood type says you like metal.
That's hilarious.
Here's some Slipknot.
You might have made another prediction, Twan, because I feel like that's very viable, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, we do make predictions here. Check our social media.
Yeah, based on your diet, based on your metabolism.
You like new metal.
Or I'm telling you, don't discount that. Like there's
true.
eyeballs on you at all times, so they know your sleeping patterns. So they'll figure, hey, this guy didn't get a good night's sleep, so I'm gonna push metal to him to wake him up.
Yeah. This guy had a rough day at work. You can tell his cortisol levels are through the roof. Let's kick him some catharsis, some heavy therapy.
It would be appropriate. I mean, if they're pushing those ads that kind of go in between the songs, like he didn't get a good night's rest, let's push some melatonin on him for as like the in between commercial. Like they might as well push the music that's conducive to whatever is gonna wake you up, chill you out. It's like any anniversary, like maybe like on 9/11, they just curate everyone's playlist to be like super happy music. Like, oh, you know what? Forget about 9/11. Just chill out.
If any of you are listening right now, any of you ad companies are listening, I mean, we're looking for sponsors.
We are.
Hit us up on the email. Hit us up on the socials. We're looking for a sponsor.
Yep. We just want to press that merch.
Yeah. Well, that's coming.
We got revolutionary merch ideas.
This guy spent a weekend in Joshua Tree. Here's some U2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Oh
Cool.
my gosh.
We joke, but there's truth. Like they know when you listen to something, where you listen to it. It's all. I mean, there's a science behind those curated Spotify daily playlists.
Well, you got a phone in your pocket. They know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like we were going to talk about with Rob. It's the current state of radio. This is the current state of technology.
Yep.
It's advanced. It's advancing every minute, every second, and data is being collected from everything that we use: smartphones, Google, Tesla.
Yeah.
Everything's gathering data in real time, and it's creating this huge database of data for the AI. So, maybe music's next. I think it's already happening, like you're saying with the playlist, Twan. But I think terrestrial radio is definitely on the down slope, and what we're doing here on Spotify is on the up. And it just shows you that variety is the spice of life, and I don't think it's going to go the other way around. So it's here to stay. It's really interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's not going to go back. I mean, at the end of the day, radio is a curated playlist, but at least it's with the Spotify stuff. It's not the same thing every day. It's not the same 5 songs.
Yeah,
like
Definitely,
you said, variety, spice of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that about wraps it up, huh?
Yeah, I think we'll probably wrap it up there. Call it quits for this week. Do we want to tease next week at all?
If you want. Yeah, if you want. We got another guest next week?
Another guest. We're not going to say who it is, but we'll leave it at that. We have another interview plan.
Yeah.
I was going to say, why don't you guess?
Music industry.
Send us your guesses.
Oh, yeah. Hit us up on the socials. Hit us up on at Patio Slave on Twitter and on Instagram, or hit us up on email. We are very active there. So if you've got a guess, throw us a DM. DMs are open, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I will give one tease, which is the band formed in like 98 is currently active per Wikipedia, but did go through a time where they were not active. And this is a band member of that band. Not much. I'm not giving you much, but yeah.
There's been some turnover in the group as well for maybe frontmen.
Yes.
That's a good one too.
That's a good one.
You can go digging, podheads, and see what you come back with.
It sounds like my hints, because all you really said is the 90s.
Yes, the 90s.
Well, even just a couple of years in the 90s, mostly.
Oh, man, I like it. Can we do a segment each week called Nate's Hints?
Yeah.
He's an OG.
Yeah. Yes, he's an OG. That doesn't tell me anything, Nate.
90s. He's in a metal band. He has black hair. Oh, shit. Everyone has black hair.
All right. Yeah. So hit us up on the socials if you have an idea, or if you just want to, let us know you're listening. We shout you guys out each week. So hit us up at Podioslave, Twitter and Instagram, and PodioSlavePodcast@gmail.com, and we will hit you back.
Awesome. Thanks all. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace, podheads.
Cheers. Have a great weekend.